Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now, I know I said I would no longer report on DCEU news, and that is still the case. But I do have an exception, and that is when it affects the Snyderverse, and yesterday's news definitely does. It seems a lot of people are extremely angry at Warner Brothers and have lost hope for the DCEU and the Snyderverse. This video will explain why there is still actually a lot of hope for the Snyderverse, even with this latest news. So the latest news is that multiple sources have reported the same thing, that the Flash film will erase Snyder's DC films, Keaton will replace Affleck, Henry Cavill's Superman is being erased from the DCEU, and Supergirl is replacing him, and Batgirl is replacing Batman. This news has caused the majority of DC fans to give up on the DCEU and Warner Brothers. Honestly, I'm the same, and I can't blame anyone for giving up on the DCEU, because it appears Warner Brothers have too. Now, one person did message Ezra Miller on Instagram about this news, and this is what he had to say. He's basically saying that the films won't cease to exist after The Flash, which is true and not helpful at all. Of course they won't cease to exist. I have all 3 Blu-rays here at home. He didn't answer the question and just said that the films will still exist after the Flash film. Also, obviously, he's not going to admit a huge spoiler for the film. Why would he do that? No other actor has confirmed a huge plot point for the film before the movie's out, especially on a direct message on Instagram. Also, doesn't his answer remind you of any other answer that another actor said about a DC movie?
No, I think we're just about finished with everything. They've been brief, if anything. But yeah, I mean, Joss is a great guy, and Zach picked a good person to come in and clean up and finish up for him.
Ezra Miller will be under an NDA, so he's not going to say anything that will spoil the movie. He's most likely been told what to say on this matter. I also have no problem with Supergirl or Batgirl coming into the DCEU. In fact, I was really excited to see it happen. But hearing that they are replacing Superman and Batman instead of fighting alongside them has made me lose all interest in those characters. Knowing that they are just there to erase Snyder's work, and the unfortunate thing is that I can see both actresses getting hate for being the ones to do that. It's not their fault that they are the people acting as those characters. It's Warner Brothers who are the ones to blame. In fact, I don't blame the directors, actors, or anyone working on these films. This problem I have is purely directed at Warner Brothers. Now, before this news hit, I did do a video on why I don't care about the DCEU anymore. So I do mention most of the reasons there as to why I've given up on the DCEU. But then this bomb dropped, and the DCEU somehow got even worse, and even more people have given up on the DCEU. But I did say that this video is why there is still hope for the Snyderverse, and that's because there is. Whilst it appears Warner Brothers are so determined to erase Snyder's DC characters and stories from the main DCEU, this move, in my opinion, has massively backfired for 3 reasons. The first is that they have allowed the Snyderverse to be completely disconnected from the DCEU, as in they may erase Snyder's DC films from the main DCEU timeline, but as they keep on mentioning, the multiverse will be in full swing. And so all this has done is completely disconnected the Snyderverse from the DCEU, which is actually a real positive because it gives Snyder more freedom to tell his story instead of forcing in other characters and storylines that the main DCEU has brought in. So they have kind of done us a favour because it means no more confusion as to what is connected to the Snyderverse and what isn't. The second reason is that fans have mostly united against this decision. The collective belief is that this move the Flash film will be doing is wrong and is ruining the DCEU, which means more people are now against Warner Brothers and the DCEU. This is good news for us because Warner Brothers Discovery will be watching their new market, and they can see how fans are reacting to this decision by Warner Brothers and how it is actually backfiring on the company and the DCEU. So the Warner Brothers executives are kind of making the decisions for Discovery, in the sense that they are showing Discovery why they are not fit to make the decisions within the DC universe. So it is more likely that when the Warner Bros. Discovery merger finalizes, the people in power will change. David Zaslav, the CEO of Discovery and soon to be CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery, did clearly state that the company will listen to what consumers want, and it is clear consumers do not want this DCEU future. So, in a weird way, we should be grateful to those Warner Bros. Executives for being so bad at their jobs, because they are making Discovery's decision easier. In a merger, there will always be redundancies. You can't have two people doing the same job at such a high level. And the current Warner Bros. Executives are really building a case as to why it should be them to leave the company. As I've said before, I do not wish anyone to lose their job. This is from the business's perspective, and they want the best decision makers in those roles. And all they have to do is look at the DCEU's history to realise that the current executives are not good decision makers. The third reason why this is kind of good news is that this has actually made more DC fans realise that the DCEU was better when Snyder was around. I like this meme because for me, it is so true. We've seen the DCEU with Snyder. I and many others liked it, and some didn't. And we've seen the DCEU without Snyder. The start was okay, but clearly they are now going in an awful direction. And so most fans realise that the universe was way better when Snyder was around. I think most fans have just given up on Warner Brothers. It is so clear that they don't actually care about the DCEU or the stories they tell. The sole purpose of the Flash film is to erase Snyder's films and characters. They think by bringing Keaton back, DC fans will ignore what they are doing and will just blindly follow them because of the nostalgic factor of Keaton's return. But the good news is that the Flash film means the Snyderverse won't have to deal with the main DCEU anymore. The multiverse is open, and I'm sure Discovery will use that to their advantage. The DCEU in one universe, the Reevesverse in another, and the Snyderverse also in another. So, if people enjoy the DCEU, they can continue watching it. But, with the way they are going, I don't think there will be much of an audience. The Reevesverse and the Snyderverse is where the money is at right now. They are both a goldmine in my opinion, and have so much potential. I do have an interesting theory though, and I want to get your opinions on it. I don't know how much of my own theory I believe, but I do think it is an interesting one. So, if you've seen my videos on the channel, then there have been a lot of signs that the Snyderverse may continue. Snyder hinting at himself multiple times, Warner Media strangely calling the Snyder Cut a global phenomenon when Warner Brothers tried to claim that it was a flop, and many other pieces of evidence that you can find on my channel. But what if Discovery was okay with The Flash erasing the Snyderverse and its characters because they have plans to use those characters in another storyline? So, to clearly remove those characters from the DCEU, audiences can see the difference between the main DCEU timeline and the Snyderverse. What if Discovery will use the multiverse and the Flash film to explain how the Snyderverse can continue? I do think the merger is closer than we think, and I think they were the ones who reactivated the Warner Max copyright. If you don't know, Warner Max were a branch of Warner Brothers that managed HBO Max and greenlit the Snyder Cut. When that happened, Warner Brothers shut them down and tried to deal with HBO Max themselves. So, maybe Discovery are bringing them back to help deal with HBO Max, and possibly a Snyderverse future on the streaming service. It's not an ideal way to see the Snyderverse, but if that is the only option we have, I am taking it every single day of the week. This is optimistic thinking, but I can see the signs of this being a possibility. I can't see any scenario where Discovery allow the executives to continue as they are, especially with David Zaslav's statement. All I do know is that yes, the DCEU is a mess, and the Flash film seems to be doing more damage than good, but there is still so much hope and potential. The multiverse is opened, and the Flash film has actually created a real opportunity for the Snyderverse to be free. So, we need to stick together, stay positive, and keep on pushing for the Snyderverse, because I really believe Discovery are listening. And as always, hope never dies. But that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I hope to see you here again soon. So until then, have a great day. Bye.